You didn't leak numbers. You leaked lives. The line lands in a sealed skiff where no electronic signs glare at the door, and a security officer controls entry, badges, and manifests. A SAP read-in pins the room silent. Everyone present, because need to know leaves no room for vanity. Admiral Thomas Avery, USN 010, blinks hard. Capt. Lucas Ward, U3 hides discomfort. Cole, Mark Dalton, U6 stiffens. Maj, Aaron Whitaker, 04, watches the screen. Doctor, Lauren Hayes steadies a pen. Staff, She-T. Ryan Hale stands in back and studies Claire Morgan, a small figure in blacks that never fidgets. Her weight rides the balls of the feet. Eyes touch corners and cover. Hands stay visible. Breath even like a range day. A sleeve shifts as she sets a cup, and a brief shadow of a sniper rifle tattoo slips into view, then disappears. A secret older than the room. The stakes sharpen as the slide shifts to terrain overseas. Room accepts what no one wants to say. A domestic leak put Americans in the ground. The hallway sign reads no electronics, and the door guard checks badges with steady patience as each name is matched to a manifest. Inside the skiff, the air feels contained and orderly. Lights low. Projector asleep until the read-in begins. TSSCI badges carry thin color blocks that mark compartments, and movement is controlled with a simple nod from the security officer. The SAP read-in is pure need to know, and no one pretends otherwise. Claire Morgan slips through on a service cart that looks ordinary against steel and carpet. Her presence is covered by a legitimate visitor manifest. A temporary badge keyed to a compartment, and a read-in on detail to the Department of Defense Inspector General from Army CID. The paperwork is clean, and the escort acknowledgement is logged at the door. She moves like someone who trusts process to keep her invisible. Admiral Thomas Avery lets a casual slight hang in the room, and the tone settles around it like dust. Capt. Lucas Ward follows with a budget joke that gets a few nervous smiles, and cold. Mark Dalton waves her off with a flick that says not now. The table shifts back to slides and talking points, while the small figure with the cart becomes background. No one asks why a service worker would be inside a compartmented briefing, because shared arrogance answers for them. At the rear staff Chateau, Ryan Hale watches what others miss. He marks the way her weight sits on the balls of the feet, the short scans to corners, the way she checks cover and sight lines without moving her head. Her hands stay visible, wrists loose, shoulders down, breath held in a pattern that feels like range discipline. None of it fits hospitality, and all of it fits training. The security officer paces once by the wall, and the placards are a quiet warning that phones are out of bounds. Badges ride high. Lanyards clear. And the room accepts the rules as muscle memory. The read-in will start on schedule, and the tone is practical to the point of cold. Under it all, the temperature of the group sits a degree too warm. The kind of heat that comes from pride before a drop. Capt. Lucas Ward gives his cup a careless nudge, and a dark ring of espresso slides toward the table edge. Claire Morgan moves before anyone exhales, folding a napkin inward with tight angles that corral the liquid and kill the spread at the lip. Each motion is small and efficient. No wasted reach. Wrists steady. Pressure measured. It feels like a field response learned beside medics and EOD at forward operating bases, not a trick from hospitality service. Maj. Aaron Whitaker watches the pattern and knows instinct when he sees it. The smooth sequence of contain, isolate, secure out in real work. Staff She-T. Ryan Hale notes the center of gravity over the balls of the feet. The micro scans that touch corners without telegraph. The quiet checks of cover and sightlines. Hands stay visible. Shoulders low. Breathing paced like a range day where cadence matters more than bravado. Nothing about the posture says server. Everything says training that never leaves the body. The projector hums to life, and a terrain map of Kandahar washes the wall in muted greens and sand. The room sits in low light, and the silence stretches as senior attendees pretend they did not witness the small, nervous demonstration of control just a minute earlier. The security officer holds station outside the door, and no one reaches for a phone because the placards make the rules impossible to miss. Etiquette stays tight with no salutes indoors. Only clipped movements, and the slow rise of tension that tells the audience a reversal is already in motion. The projector snaps to life and throws a topo map of Kandahar across the wall, ridgelines stacked like ribs. Senior officers trade careful phrases about a cross-valley shooter, voices level while eyes keep drifting to the door. A security officer holds room control, and the no electronics placards glare back like a second set of sentries. No one exhales. Claire Morgan studies the wind lines etched in the contours and speaks in a voice made for checklists and ranges. For a 762 platform, like the M110A1, the practical window is 900 to 1,100 meters in this terrain. 14 to 1,500 is a stretch that needs perfect air and luck, and 2,400 points to a 50 BMG anti-materiel rifle on the far ridge. Maj. Aaron Whitaker flips through counter-sniper notes and ballistic tables and finds the same numbers waiting in black and white. Staff SGT. Ryan Hale watches Claire read angles and channels like someone who has stood in mountain wind with a radio hissing. He tracks her eyes as they move from saddle to draw and never miss the spot where the valley becomes a funnel. The room tries to pretend this is routine and talks about timelines and reporting chains while tension climbs the walls. Badges sit high. Hands stay off pockets. And the security officer keeps the door as steady as a metronome. Power shifts by a few quiet degrees as her clean ballistic reed settles over the table, and the reveal ahead begins to feel inevitable. Staff ZT. Ryan Hale steps to a JWICS terminal and pulls up the visitor manifest with the calm of someone who trusts logs more than rumors. The entry shows Claire Morgan read in at top secret SCI with a special access program and on detail to the Department of Defense Inspector General from Army CID. He notes the compartment line, the badge number, the escort acknowledgement, and the timestamp that places her inside the room by policy. He breathes once and closes the window the way you do when procedure speaks for itself. He crosses to the security officer and delivers a quiet update that never disturbs the table. The officer nods and shapes the flow of the room with a hand that means carry on. No change to seating or slides. Admiral Thomas Avery hesitates as the words need to know move like a weight across his posture and trim the edge off certainty. He looks at rank and finds it means less than the compartment marker printed on a small strip of color at the top of each badge. The door opens, and Director Samuel Brooks from CIA enters as a liaison only, and the air shifts by a fraction toward order. He takes a seat, watches the screen, and gives Claire a nod that says she is exactly where policy placed her. And nothing more. No one reaches for a phone. No one stands to gesture. Movement stays controlled inside the skiff. The room begins to absorb a simple truth that access belongs to compartments, not to egos. And the tension gathers in the quiet, where rules decide who belongs. The door opens on a measured cue, and FBI counterintelligence enters first, followed by representatives from Army CID, Air Force OSI, and NCIS. The lead agent announces a controlled space, confirms no electronics, and requests everyone remain seated while identities and compartments are logged against the manifest. Badges are checked at the table, lanyards visible, and a security officer mirrors the flow to keep movement tight and quiet. Clipboards and tablets approved for the room move in a clean circuit, each name paired to a compartment line and time of entry. The agents note where people sat, who handled slides, and who carried materials in or out under escort. The tone never spikes. Calm voices, short instructions, and the steady rhythm of a team that treats process as armor. Director Samuel Brooks from CIA observes from his chair and trades low questions about intelligence sharing lanes, but he issues no commands about custody. The line is clear. Inside the United States, the FBI leads counterintelligence steps, sets interview priority, calls evidence preservation, and coordinates with prosecutors for warrants if the facts demand it. DoD Inspector General's staff oversee coordination and ensure defense equities are protected without blurring roles. Folders close with soft clicks, and the lead agent sets the order of interviews. Witness separates from potential subjects, and chain of custody envelopes are prepared. The room understands that need to know outranks ego when the board reads like a checklist, and each action has a reference number. Claire Morgan sits still while the structure tightens around the table, and even senior shoulders settle as the investigation takes command of the air. Tension rises not from noise, but from the quiet weight of correct procedure moving forward. Admiral Thomas Avery reaches without thinking and clamps a hand around Claire Morgan's wrist. Fabric slides and the room inhales as a line of ink flashes in the low light. For a heartbeat, the projector paints contour lines across her skin, and the table goes still. The security officer turns. Badges catch the glow. And even the quiet hum of the HVAC seems to hold. The tattoo is not a flourish. It is the silhouette of an M110A1 marksman system. Stock to muzzle. Optic rail clean. Free-floated handguard. Suppressor profile suggested by the taper. Along the forearm sit hash marks and tight mission coordinates. A ledger, more than art. Madge. Aaron Whitaker sees the platform in his head, like a checklist, and knows this is modern, not museum. Staff Shati. Ryan Hale reads the symbols as deployments locked to places that bite. FBI Special Agent Natalie Pierce moves first. Steady voice and clear posture, and the security officer is already beside her. Hands-off personnel is the only message that matters, and Avery lets go as procedure reclaims the air. The agents reset distance, confirm control of the room, and remind everyone that a skiff is touch-free, device-free, and salutes do not belong indoors. Movement shrinks to inches and then to breath. Faces change before words can. Avery stares at what he grabbed and finds a history he never earned. Whitaker keeps his eyes on the tattoo and then on the map, as if connecting two layers of the same truth. Hale watches Claire steady her sleeve. Shoulders, even. Bull's quiet. The power in the room turns a degree at a time until it is obvious that this is not a server's wrist. It is a sniper's record written on skin. Claire Morgan speaks with the steady cadence of a range brief and says she is the only survivor of Shadow Team 9. The room stays seated and still because skiff rules are muscle memory. No phones. Controlled entry at the door. A security officer like a metronome. Madge. Aaron Whitaker watches her shoulders and how her eyes never hunt for approval. Staff SGT. Ryan Hale notes calm born of contact and clocks how she paces her breath before the next fact lands. She outlines the team the way you inventory a ruck after a hard climb. 3 assaulters from infantry backgrounds who carried the main push, 1 medic who kept airways and bleeding under control, 1 signals specialist who guarded SIGINT and comms integrity so calls stayed short and clean, 1 demolitions or EOD specialist who knew how to open a path or make a trap safe, 1 sniper who lived in glass and wind. The mix fits mountains, and it fits the map on the wall. She lays out the contact as if tracing a line on the terrain. Overwatch set on a ridge, while a narrow choke point funneled movement into a kill lane. Radios cracked with short calls, and each correction walked mortars closer in steps. The timing read like a schedule, and the routes felt exposed, which means the enemy had help. Whitaker nods because the pattern is right. Hale accepts it with the shift of someone who has heard this tempo in field reports. The room absorbs fact that a domestic leak fed the ambush. Claire Morgan unfolds a worn piece of paper that has lived in a pocket through cold mornings and long briefings. The skiff holds still, while the security officer watches the door, and no one moves a phone or a pen. She reads the 7 fallen from Shadow Team 9 inches, a voice that feels like a formation at 2:30 p.m. Staff, GT. Michael Caine loved weekend breakfasts. He cooked for his mother. SGT. Noah Briggs kept a tiny notebook of jokes to read to his son on video calls. SGT. Luis Ortega sent half his pay home and fixed neighbors' cars on leave because he hated seeing anyone stuck. SGT. Blake Turner practiced guitar until his fingertips blistered and promised himself one good song for every buddy lost. SGT. Owen Carter learned to bake sourdough in a field oven and carried starter in a plastic tub wrapped with tape. SGT. Alex Park rebuilt dirt bikes with his father and left an unfinished frame waiting in a garage that smells like oil and dust. SGT. Cole Maddox mailed postcards to his sister from every training area and signed each one with a sketch of the sky he saw that day. The room does not speak at all. Admiral Thomas Avery stares. Kroll. Mark Dalton folds his hands. Capt. Lucas Ward looks smaller. Maj. Aaron Whitaker breathes once. Doctor. Lauren Hayes presses a thumb to paper. And Staff Sheety. Ryan Hale keeps his eyes level. No electronics now. No salutes. Controlled movement. These were fathers, sons, and friends. Not numbers. Kroll. Mark Dalton cracks under the steady pressure of silence and begins to spill fragments about passing coordinates. His breath stumbles, and the words tangle, while Claire Morgan sits anchored and calm. FBI Special Agent Natalie Pierce raises a hand, halts further statements, advises rights in a voice built for policy and courts, and initiates counsel and an interview under standard procedures. FBI counterintelligence takes the lead with a checklist that feels like armor. Evidence preservation begins at the table. Items are noted, sealed, and labeled as chain of custody forms open on approved devices. Army SID, Air Force OSI, or NCIS, aligned by jurisdiction, while the Department of Defense Inspector General oversees coordination and documentation. Director Samuel Brooks from CIA observes as a liaison and keeps the intelligence lanes clear without touching custody or arrest decisions. The lead agent sets interview priorities and drafts a schedule that starts at 2:30 p.m., then signals for rooms to be prepared. A second agent builds a warrant packet with prosecutors in case the facts require it. Each step logged against the manifest. The security officer maintains room control, with quiet signals that keep movement limited and predictable. No electronics appear. Badges stay visible. And indoor respect carries without salutes. Dalton folds inward, while Claire remains steady. And the room finally understands that justice here moves on policy, not on speeches or theater. Chairs slide back in unison, and the room rises to attention without salutes. It is indoors, not a ceremony. And respect is carried by posture and quiet. Badges rest high on collars. Hands stay still at the seams. And the security officer holds the door with steady eyes. The air feels cooler when no one tries to make a scene. Admiral Thomas Avery steadies himself, smooths a wrinkle from his jacket, and meets Claire Morgan with a level nod. He says the words, "Understood, Master Sergeant," and then steps aside, letting discipline speak louder than rank. Around the table, shoulders lower by a fraction, as the room accepts authority earned, not performed. Claire answers with a small breath that feels like a reset. FBI counterintelligence confers with the Department of Defense Inspector General and lays out the next blocks of work. Interview rooms are queued. Lawful searches are scheduled. And chain of custody materials are staged for the first lift. Director Samuel Brooks remains in the liaison lane and watches the flow for intelligence handoffs. Movement stays controlled inside the skiff. No electronics. No stray conversations. Only the rhythm of professionals. Claire closes the moment with a simple line that justice matters more than praise, then turns her focus back to process. The security officer releases small groups on command, and the room breaks into ordered pieces. Avery adjusts his notes and falls into the plan. What remains is stillness, correct protocol, and a shared understanding that the right work begins now. Security is a habit long before it is a headline. Complacency and shortcuts creep in as small favors and careless chats, then turn into routes and timing that put real people at risk. Humility and discipline are not about fear. They are about keeping faith with those who trust us to come home. Honor the quiet professionals who carry scars you may never see. Respect need to know, even when curiosity buzzes. Treat a skiff like a promise and handle sensitive information in everyday work with the same care you would give a life on the line. If you are tired, slow down and check the badge. The manifest. The door. If this story reached you, share where you are watching so others can hear it too. Subscribe if you want more accounts that honor the fallen and the unseen. Told with accuracy and respect, take the lesson back to your team and your family and choose the careful step over the easy one. Justice does not arrive with applause. It keeps moving through process, integrity, and the quiet work that no one notices until it matters most.